Class 8th History. Chapter number 6, Weavers, Iron Smelters and Factory Owners. Dear students, in the chapter we will learn the story of the crafts and industries of India during the British rule by focusing on two industries, namely textiles and iron and steel. Both these industries were crucial for the industrial revolution in the modern world. Mechanized production of cotton textile made Britain the foremost industrial nation in the 19th century, and when its iron and steel industry started growing from the 1850s, Britain came to be known as a workshop of the world. The industrialization of Britain had a close connection with the conquest and colonization of India. So let's we read the chapter Weavers, Iron Smelters and Factory Owners. Let's start the chapter, students. Topic is Indian textiles and the world market. Around 1750, India was the world's largest producer of cotton textiles, renowned both for their fine quality and exquisite craftsmanship. They were traded in Southeast Asia, Java, Sumatra, and Penang, and West and Central Asia. European trading companies brought Indian textile and sold them in Europe. Words tell us stories. Students in European traders first encountered fine cotton cloth from India carried by Arab merchants in Mosul, present day Iraq. The Portuguese came to India in search of spices and the cotton textiles they took back to Europe, called calico, derived from Calcut. There were many other words which pointed to the popularity of Indian textile in Western markets. Different varieties of cloth were named differently, such as printed cotton clothes were called chintz, kosasis or khasa, and badana. Chint is derived from the Hindi word chit, a cloth with small and colorful flowery designs. A craze started from Indian cotton textile in England and Europe, namely for their exquisite floral designs, fine texture, and relative cheapness. Badana, derived from the word badana, refers to any brightly colored and printed scarf for the neck or head, produced through a method of tying and dyeing. Now let's move to next topic, Indian textile in European markets. Indian textile became widely popular by the early 18th century, which worried wool and silk markers in England. They began protesting against the import of India cotton textile. In 1720, the British government enacted legislation banning the use of printed cotton textile chintz in England, called the Calico Act. In England, textile industry had just begun to develop and they wanted a square market within the country by preventing the entry of Indian textile. The calico printing industry was set up under government protection. Indian designs were limited and printed in England on white muslin or plain unbleached Indian cloth. In 1764, the spinning jenny was invented by John Kaya. Richard Arkwright in 1786 invented the steam engine, which revolutionized cotton textile weaving. Indian textile dominated world trade till the end of the 18th century. European trading companies purchased cotton and silk textile in India by importing silver. Next topic was who were the weavers. Students, weavers belonged to communities that specialized in weaving, and skills were passed on from one generation to the next. Some of the communities famous for weaving were the Tanti weavers of Bengal, the Julahas or Momin weavers of North India, Sale and Kai Kolar and Divangs of South India. Spinning is the first stage of production where charkha and the takli were used. The thread was spun on the charkha and rolled on the takli. After spinning, the thread was woven into cloth by the weaver. For colored textiles, the thread was dyed by the dyer known as rangrez. For printed cloth, the weavers needed the help of specialist block printers known as chipagars. The decline of Indian textile. In Britain, cotton industries were developed, which affected textile producers in India. Indian textiles had to compete with British textiles in the European and American markets. Exporting textile to England also became increasingly difficult since very high duties were imposed on Indian textiles imported into Britain. In Africa, America, and Europe, Indian goods traditional market was ousted by English made cotton textile. English and European companies stopped buying Indian goods and distressed weavers wrote petitions to the government to help them. By the 1813s, British cotton cloth flooded Indian markets, which affected specialized weavers and spinners. In India, handloom weaving continued as some types of clothes could not be supplied by machines. Sholpura in Western India and Madura in South India emerged as important new centers of weaving in the late 19th century. Mahatma Gandhi, during the national movement, urged people to boycott imported textile and use hand-spun and hand-woven cloth. Khadi became a symbol of nationalism and the charkha represented India. The charkha was put at the center of the tricolor flag of the Indian National Congress, adopted in 1931. Cotton mills comes up in 1854. The first cotton mill was set up in Mumbai and it had grown. The charkha was put at the center of the tricolor flag of the Indian National Congress, adopted in 1931. Cotton mills come up. In 1854, the first cotton mill was set up in Mumbai and it had grown as an important port for the export of raw cotton from India to England and China. In Mumbai, over 84 mills were established by Paris and Gujarati businessmen. By 1900, mills started developing in cities and the first mill in Ahmedabad was started in 1861. Growth of cotton mills demanded labor. Poor peasants, artisans, and agriculture laborers worked in the mills. Textile factory industry in India faced problems such as difficulty competing with the cheap textile imported from Britain. In most countries, the government supported industrialization by imposing heavy duties on imports, which eliminated competition and protected infant industries. The major support in the development of cotton factory production in India therefore was during the First World War, when textile imports from Britain declined and Indian factories were called upon to produce cloth for military supplies. Next topic is the sword of Tipu Sultan and wood steel. The sword of Tipu Sultan was the special because it had an incredibly hard and sharp edge that could easily rip through the opponent's armor. This quality of the sword came from a special type of high carbon steel called woods, which was produced all over South India. Wood steel, when made into swords, produced a very sharp edge with a flowing water pattern, which came from very small carbon crystals embedded in the iron. Wood steel was produced in many hundreds of smelting furnaces in Mysore. In these furnaces, iron was mixed with charcoal and put inside small clay pots. Through an intricate control of temperatures, the smelters produced steel ingots used for sword making. Woods is an anglicized version of the Kannada word ukku, Telugu hukku, and Tamil and Malayalam urku, meaning steel. Wood steel making processes was widely known in South India, which completely lost its existence by the mid-19th century. The swords and armor making industry died with the conquest of India by the British and imports of India iron and steel from England displaced the iron and steel produced by craftspeople in India. Abandoned furnaces in villages. Abandoned furnaces in villages. Wood steel production required a highly specialized technique of refining iron. In India, iron smelting was common till the end of the 19th century. In Bihar and central India, every district had smelters. The furnaces were built of clay and sun-dried bricks. By the late 19th century, the craft of iron smelting declined. The reason was the government prevented people from entering the reserved forests. The government granted access to the forests in some areas, but the iron smelters had to pay very high tax to the forest department for every furnace they used. By the late 19th century, iron and steel were imported from Britain. By the early 20th century, the artisans producing iron steel faced new competition. Next topic is students' iron and steel factories come up in India. In 1904, Charles Weld, an American geologist, and Dorabaji Tata, the eldest son of Jamsetji Tata, traveled to Chhattisgarh in search of iron ore deposits. They wanted to set up a modern iron and steel plant in India. After traveling for months, Weld and Dorabaji found Rajhara Hills, which had one of the finest ores in the world, but the region was dry and water was not to be found nearby. So the search continued, and the Agaris helped in the discovery of a source of iron ore. A large area of forest was cleared on the banks of the river Subarnerikha to set up the factory and an industrial township. Jamshedpur, the Tata Iron and Steel Company Tisco began producing steel in 1912. Before Tisco, India was importing steel that was manufactured in Britain. The situation was changed by the time Tisco set up. In 1914, the First World War broke out and steel produced in Britain had to meet the demands of war in Europe. The war continued for several years, so Tisco had to produce shells and carries wheels for the war. Tisco became the biggest steel industry within the British Empire. The case of iron and steel industrial expansion occurred when British imports into India declined and the markets for Indian industrial goods increased. The development of the nationalist movement and the industrial class emerged stronger. The demand for government protection became louder. तो स्टूडेंट्स ये था आपका चैप्टर नंबर 6 हिस्ट्री से. चैप्टर नंबर 6 वीवर्स आयरन